Alright. We're tracking. Hey, and I'm getting a call from Watt. Perfect.
Nice.
Yo.
How you doing, David?
Not bad, Mike. How are you?
Now, you by yourself or you got some band members?
I got Cody with me.
Yeah,
I'm here.
Coach, I knew it was going to be another cat because you hit me to that. Well, I need you both to talk.
Alright.
Hey, Watt, this is Cody.
Okay, like kind of sound check, so you got to keep.
Yeah. Can you hear both of us? If we're just
Are we sounding okay?
You got to keep going so I can,
Talking.
sound
so-
check that fucking
so,
dig, right?
We're just here chatting
check.
and sound checking for Watt. The sound check.
Fucking alphabet.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G,
H I J K
Right.
Elemental
P,
Q.
Q, R, S.
T.
Okay, good. Now, that's the way you're going to talk, right? Because when you,
Yeah.
the sound check trick, you do real soft, then the gig comes, you play all loud, right? We ain't
Right.
going to do. Okay.
No, I think this will be the
Yeah, this will be about where we're at.
All right. Who wants to go first? I'm going to go through each of your music journey.
Alright, well, why don't you go with Cody, because we act for a bit before.
Well, C comes before D.
There we go.
Cool. So,
Hold on, we're going to do the show.
okay.
Off for Pedro Show. Happy Monday. Last Monday for March. Almost a done deal. We start off with Every Time We Say Goodbye. John Coltrane live, November 29, 1961, and Sea Level with Lover. People, Brother Matt's at the Love Grotto on the Pleasure Point because we're still in quarantino mode. But I'm not totally man alone because those software engineers in Estonia with their righteous Skype software. I got Cody and David from Sea Level, all the way from Cleveland. Welcome aboard.
How's it going?
How's it going?
Well, how's it going? I'm doing this show and you're the guest.
It's pretty sweet. This doesn't get any cooler.
This is an honor to talk to you, Watt, and we just appreciate you having us on.
Okay. Did have a little bit before with David because of that benefit and being on his show, but that was months ago.
Right.
And I promised David that I would return the favor.
Well, thank you so much, man. It was
Appreciate it. And I did listen to that episode, so I'm privy to everything that you guys talked about.
Yeah, well, that was his show. He ran it. I tried to be a good guest, Cody.
An awesome episode for me as a listener to experience.
Okay, now you're a fucking guest also. Now let's get into your fucking journey through music. Well, Cody, please bring me your earliest musical recollection.
Actual memory in life. When I was about 5 years old, my mom picked me up from kindergarten and took me to go meet Ozzy Osbourne. And that really is the earliest memory I have.
Did he sing for you?
He didn't know. It was like
And where was the fucking music?
at reunion tour they did or whatever.
Okay,
But yeah.
Okay. Look, it's a Watt from Pedro show. There are no hard questions and there are no wrong answers. So you're safe, Cody. Now, where was this? Was this Cleveland? Okay.
Meet and greet.
Let me ask you. Well, forget that. He's bad. I saw them a couple times. When I saw Black Sabbath, he never stood in the middle.
whoa.
He was the guitar player. But anyway, back to your story and your music. In the pad you grew up there in Cleveland, was there any musical instruments?
Guitar, but he was never like a trained musician. He was more of a self-taught guy, and he would, as opposed to like learning riffs, he would kind of just make up his own riffs, and he didn't really know chords. He kind of just did it his own way, and so I was inspired from that. And at a young age, around maybe 10 or so, I started to pick up the guitar, and that was the first instrument that I started playing on.
Well, that's why I'm going to ask you, because there's a guitar around, and your pop wasn't being creative on it. Did you jump on? And you did jump on. But before you jumped on, what about grade school? Were you in the fucking marching band or the choir, shit like that?
Yeah, I did actually. I played saxophone in grade school, but that was
Which one? Which one?
It was tenor.
Wow, like John Coltrane.
Yeah, but it was actually around the same time that I was picking up guitar, so I was more interested in guitar and not as interested in saxophone. But I did do,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah,
The sound of the saxophone blowing hard in a fuzz guitar.
quite similar.
Yeah, I've always felt that. I've always fucking felt that. And you know, sax was real important to early rock and roll, and before that R&B, right?
Totally, and it's one of my favorite instruments. But I feel like as a kid, it just didn't have the same sort of like appeal because I said I met Ozzy Osbourne, so clearly I was coming from a heavy metal sort of young.
Well, and also,
background.
I got Cody. I gotta imagine the material. You're probably playing shit for the school.
Yeah, they had was playing more like simple stuff, but I did do the talent show they had. I played "Smoke on the Water" on the saxophone, and then set the saxophone down and picked up my guitar and played it on the guitar.
All right, and I guess you played the guitar part.
Yeah, I just played the one riff on both instruments.
But if you listen to that fucking song, Cody, not to cut you off or anything, but the bass guy, I think it was Robert Glover, right?
Yeah, Robert Glover.
I think he even wrote the fucking
Roger Glover, that's what it was. Sorry.
Yeah, that's Roger. And I think he's the second baseman. I think he wrote the words too, just like Geezer did for Black Sabbath. Look, what was the first record you bought with your own money?
The first record I bought with my own money, it's hard to, it would have been some sort of metal record.
So you're into genre?
I was as a kid. As a kid growing up
now,
Cleveland, it was real, my life was real genre-based until I got a little bit older.
It was, man. That's what it was like when the record companies ran the show.
Totally.
But we grew out of that shit, right? Music is music.
Yeah, exactly.
So what about the first gig you went to? It was probably that fucking Ozzy gig, right?
No, actually, the first gig I went to is kind of it was a cornier rock band of the time. They were called Stained. I don't know if you remember.
But my earliest memory was 5 years old meeting Ozzy.
Yeah, so I had met him, but I think that was like just a meet and greet, and then I actually saw Sabbath on their reunion tour, which was maybe like 6 months later or something like that.
So you saw in between that time a gig. Okay.
Yeah, I saw a gig, and it was actually...
They're called Stained, huh?
Yeah, they're called Stained.
I know about the Stains. They were from East LA, and they were a great band. They made an album for SST.
Yeah, no, this is not that type of music. This was more just like early 2000s radio rock. But the cool thing...
here we go, getting into types and genres again.
Sure. But the cool thing about that first gig experience was it was my birthday, and the guy took the time to sing "Happy Birthday" to me from on stage or whatever.
Fuck, how do you know you were there? How do you know it was your birthday?
My mom had made a cardboard sign that we wrote, "It's my birthday."
Well put. Well put. Watt has, he's in his place now with the little pat on the top of his head. Okay, so what about this, Cody? Not after school, like graduate, but after school in the afternoon, and you get the garage band or the bedroom band or the basement band going. Did you do that?
Yeah, so the first band I did was kind of, like you said, just a garage band, and we were called Wasted Generation, and it was just a few of my friends. None of us really knew how to play our instruments, and I think we actually had all had instruments, but wanted someone else in the band to play that instrument. So but we never learned any songs or got past the garage at all.
It was just a practice. Learn songs. You were trying to copy off records or write your own?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were trying to copy off, like, I remember we tried
to... No, me and D. Boone did the same. There was no culture until the movement. Look, I want to play Burn Your Own Gasoline.
Awesome.
Well, for Pedro Show, that chunk of music started off as Sea Level from Seatown. Burn Your Own Gasoline. Dustin Wong, after that, Inward, Outward, Skyward. Dustin Wong's got a brand new album. It's called Internal Hot Springs, and it's fucking bitching. It comes out this week, so check it out. This week. Thursday's D. Boone's B-Day. Tobacco, after that, from Pittsburgh, not far from you. Brand new album. He's got Everything Around the Knife, and it's fucking bitching. I love it. Marco Serrato and Raul Cantizano in Seville, Spain, they got a brand new album out. Everybody, it's springtime for album rock. With Contravetta. Wharton's expanding jazz band, Wharton Tears, cat, New York City. I got to record with him once with Bob Quine and Lee Ronaldo doing Bobby Dylan's Freeze Out. He's a beautiful band. He's got a new record. Wharton's Exploding Jazz Band, Magic Sky. And there's people like Thirst and Glenn Bonica and shit like that. Tommy Dahill from Alaska with Sylvain, for Sil Sylvain. We lost Brother Sil a couple months ago. Great, great cat. New York Doll Man. Dirty Guitar Politics from Bombas Brennan. The Crevice Tool. Dirty Guitar Politics. Sounds like somebody's fucking got hiccups. Hans Rotten after that from Switzerland with Rakim Mars. Space Pack. And then finally, Backpack Train, Sea Level. So let's get over to David. David, your earliest musical recollection, please.
I think the earliest musical recollection I have is listening to. So my dad works construction. My dad and my grandpa own a company, and they're a two-man team, right? And is hearing blues records, just hearing B.B. King, hearing all the blues guys coming from the radio in their shop or the radio in their cars. So that would have to be the earliest music I can remember.
No, that's all right. That's all right. That's a good memory. And in the pad, are you C-Town too? Are you Cleveland?
Yeah.
Okay, so in that pad, was there instruments?
No, there wasn't at first. Like my grandpa played a accordion, and my dad always liked piano and blues guitar, right? And my brother eventually got a guitar, and my younger brother. And he worked on it for a couple years, and it kind of sat around. And that's when I picked it up. So I went over and was trying to figure it out, and like was trying to learn riffs from like the Blues Brothers film. Like blues was a big deal at my house, so that's kind of like where it started. Is my brother?
Well, what about school? Were you in the choir, the marching band, or shit like that?
I was in choir, and then I took general music, which is the kids that didn't want to be in choir or marching band. And like that was like around middle school, and that's when I really started falling into the guitar and trying to figure it out on my own. So I kind of dodged all the academic education, which
it doesn't seem like what I've noticed, David, is that there don't seem to be a lot of music when there is a music program, right? Some schools got rid of them. That's why I always ask that fucking question.
Yeah.
But it seems like they never want to get into guitar much. Now I've had guests where they did learn guitar in fucking elementary school and junior high and shit like you're talking. But usually it's brass for some marching thing for the football game, right? Or it's like an orchestra, a band, a big band for school, either helping with a play or some kind of like assembly shit, right?
Yeah.
So what you do is you man up and go man alone.
Right. Yeah, so I just started picking at it myself.
Right? You just like listen to records and try to copy?
Yeah. Doing the record thing. And then like tablature became a thing in high school. I'm like, I can find someone else try to figure it out. I can try to see if they figured it out, what I couldn't figure out. A lot of it.
Do you like that form? Do you like that form of talking?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, it's always fucked up for me, you know. But the notes and staves are hard too.
Right.
I got into was more just blocking off chords and bars and shit, but like cheat sheets. But the tab, that's a hard way to implement licks and riffs
in rhythm.
And the tab is probably the best for maybe riffs if you don't know how to read notes and staves.
Right. Well, and it goes back to like a lute music. It's as far as in music history, that's with stringed instruments, they would tab it out. So it's a old form, just like sheet music, but for stringed instruments, it makes sense, right? Here's the fret, here's where you put your finger. It kind of gets.
But the problem is it don't carry no time weight.
Right. That is the only.
Yeah, that's
learn how to do that.
Yeah. It doesn't tell you how that number 5 lasts.
Yeah.
The number 3 lasts. So, okay, yeah, maybe where you put your finger on the fucking string, but as far as like, anyway, look, they're just ways of trying to bring to another dimension, the actual dimension of performing it, right?
Right. That's when the listening comes okay, now you got rid of the physical thing. Where do I put my finger? And then you have to listen to it. So it
Right.
almost, in a way,
Maybe that helps develop the ear, though.
right? It's kind of half and half. And I think it depends on the person, because like it is weird with your comment on how in school it's brass instruments and stuff, but those are expensive. Guitars are cheaper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the guitar.
You want to know real expensive, David? When me boomer boys, right? We're 13 in 1970.
Yeah.
Keyboards.
Right.
Keyboards. That's why we didn't know anybody who played them, man. Even a cheap, like, electric. I think Univox made the first electric that was like $400, which was like you could buy a Volkswagen.
Wow.
Lots of gas for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so and that's why my theory, David, rock and roll went to the guitar because it was more because rock and roll is actually a piano.
Right. It's strung, right? And you're doing the same thing. There's just less strings and less it's supposed to 3 strings per note. You got 1, unless you got like a 12 string. But I just found it interesting because guitar is harder to do physically, maybe, than brass instruments, but it's way more affordable. And you think it would?
I don't know. Here's the thing about stringed instrument. You put your finger, you hit the string, there's the note.
Right.
With the fucking brass, a lot of that note comes from your fucking lip.
Yeah, you do got to really feel the interval.
You notice the fucking bugle don't have fucking vowels.
Right. It's all in the ear, I guess. Yeah, it's
and the lip, and also the tongue, the way the tongue gets in there and shit. So look, they're all challenges and they're all interesting. What about the fucking drummer who has to do 10 things at once? Georgie told me it was like balancing on his tailbone.
And you got to carry the most.
That's right. You got to carry all that shit schlep, right? The big schlep. So what about you, like Cody, after school with the garage band, basement band, bedroom band?
Yeah, so I did that for a little bit, but it wasn't really satisfactory. Where I ended up finding my musical, where I've got into music more, was once I started to go and venture out into open mic nights, and that's actually how I met Dave.
Yeah, so
I was going to get to that, how you met, but so you left the band thing and you went for Man Alone, like singer-songwriter. So you started writing songs, or were you copying?
No, it was more so like the open mic scene around here was inviting to where they would have a house band, and if you were a younger kid playing, say, guitar, you could get on stage and play with the house band and just go through a Jimi Hendrix tune or a Black Sabbath tune, whatever it may be. So it was just copying songs, but so not to where you had to like go out all by yourself and just do it on your own.
No, kind of like a hybrid karaoke.
Yeah, I guess that's it. They would call them open jam nights instead of open mic nights, and I guess that was the proper term.
Instead of the karaoke machine, you had the karaoke band. You know, I did that once with these guys. It's called punk rock karaoke, where we let these kids come up and sing, and then we would be the backup band for them.
That's
I
awesome.
did it for about a year. Yeah, with Steve Soto, a great cat, and Greg Hetson, and Derek O'Brien, and some of the guys from the hardcore band, Circle Jerk.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say.
But the idea of, and maybe that's what these backing guys did at your fucking open mic night, to see those kids get lit up by being the singer for a song was just fucking, a lot of the fucking, I don't know, spirit of the movement. Even though nothing was original there, but just the act that they got to come up stage and be in the band for a song.
Yeah, and it was definitely in a bar that was like we shouldn't have been in. Me and Dave were way too young to be there, but we were just accepted by everyone because we were the little kids.
Did you see you play? Did you see him play? What happened?
Yeah, so the first time I actually saw him play wasn't at that bar, but my mom was a bartender at this bar called the Phoenix, and Dave, it was called the Phoenix 2 because there was another one around, but it had nothing to do with the other one. But Dave would go up there and play, and my mom told me, you got to see this kid. He can play like Jimi Hendrix. And Dave he's a few years older than me, so I think I was 13 and he was 16.
15.
And so I wasn't actually allowed to go to the bar, so I saw Dave play at this sort of like county fair type deal. It was called the Family Fun Fest, and it was basically Dave with the band from the open mic night doing the same sort of thing. But I remember the first thing I saw him play was Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix, and I was immediately like, I need to be in a band with this kid.
Okay, so what? You have a powwow?
Yeah, so I met him I don't know. I don't think I met you that day. We had a powwow at a
At a mic night.
There was an AC/DC cover band called Thunderstruck that played at the bar, and my mom let me come up to learn how to do sound. So I was actually there as like an interning sound man, and I met Dave that night, and we had a powwow, and then eventually I ended up sneaking up to the mic night on a night that my parents weren't up there and playing a song with Dave.
And it's like two guys on two guitars. There's no drummer. There's no stick man.
No, yeah, there was a house band, so there was a drummer.
Well, no.
Oh, yeah, just us two as far as like friends.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so like when I didn't do any music in school. I would do music out of school. So my dad would take me up to these blues jam nights because that's what I was learning. And so for a few years, I was just going up and sitting in with all these house bands and learning these rock and blues standards. And then some of the nights got shut down, and the Phoenix 2 had a mic night. And then so I started to go there, and the guys were having this big AC/DC show. I go to check it out, and I met Cody, and then we've been playing since.
Yeah,
Man. Look, we're at the end of the first hour, March 29, 2021. Off for Pedro Show special guests, Cody and David from Sea Level. Hold tight. Watt for Pedro Show. We start off the second hour with Sea Level, doing Easy 4. Then Ben Salter out of Tasmania with Darain. Justice Yeldham, that's Brother Lucas in Sydney with My Leaves. Andy Kerr out of the Netherlands, originally British Columbia, Victoria, the island, Big Island. OBTR, don't know what that means. Hi-Fi Club with Eugene Chadbourne, brand new. Tumor, Eugene's beautiful cat. Used to play the electric rake in Psychobilly, right? And then finally, this is like reggae, but start with A gay. It's from Sea Level. Now, when do you guys get the name Sea Level?
So during all this time when me and Cody were playing, we didn't have a band, but we were trying to figure something out, right? Like, I was like, you would come over, I would teach you stuff, and you would teach me stuff.
Well, we had started a band before Sea Level called Aberration.
Oh, that's right.
And that was our first band that we did gigs with, and we only did maybe two or three gigs, and it was mostly covers. It was a couple originals, and we would switch off. So I would play guitar on the songs that I wanted to play, and Dave would play bass, and then when he wanted to play one of his originals or a song he wanted to play, I would play bass, and we'd switch back and forth, but we were still a power trio. And
Well, wait a minute. If you're a trio, who's the third dude?
the third dude was our friend Nick Van Neal. He was the drummer that we started.
Okay, we got to give him credit.
Yeah.
The biggest fuck up the Minutemen did was not having George Hurley at the front of the fucking stage. You know, the last 20 years, I've always put my stickman up front. So let's not neglect. Okay, go ahead.
I've always dug that about your live shows. But yeah, our first drummer was Nick Van Neal, and we started that band with him. And then that band just kind of fizzled out because Dave was doing a lot at the time, a lot of different bands, and he was kind of just subbing in different things. And we ended up that just fizzled out. And then Dave had the idea to start Sea Level.
Right. So I was playing with this other group of guys from my high school because me and Cody went to different schools. And we were on our way to a gig, and my dad was driving. Like, I don't think I could drive at the time. And it was him and the bass player of that group were like, what should we call the band? We're going to this gig. We got to have a name for the band. And they were joking around. They're like, well, you can call it C-Level and Durr, because the drummer's name was this guy named Tom Durr. And everyone, it was kind of like a bit, D-E-R, you know, Durr. And like, so it spelled out Clevelander, right? And we went to the gig, we used that name, and then all those guys went their own ways. And I was at the time like writing a bunch of songs. So I liked the C level. I thought that was a cool bit, so I stuck with it.
Okay. So now, you don't ask the same stickman back into Sea Level?
Yeah, he ended up going somewhere out of state, and I think he's a Mountie now. Like he does some wildlife work.
Mountie, that's Canada.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so you get another stick man, and what? Do you still switch off on the bass guitar thing?
No, once we started Sea Level, it was more concise where Dave had this batch of songs that he wrote. So he had brought me in to play bass, and he brought a guy named Jay Sparrow in to play drums. And we went down in the basement, and he showed us these crazy songs, and none of them were the same sort of feel. And both of us were just kind of immediately drawn in because at that age, everyone that was writing songs was kind of writing one style or feel, and Dave had just dropped this batch of songs on us that was all sort of everywhere.
And so how long was it before the first gig?
Man,
Maybe two or 3 months.
yeah, it wasn't long.
And our first gig was actually at the Grog Shop, which was where we have seen you play several times. And
Well, there's actually 2 grog shops, right?
Yeah, it was the later one, the one where it is now.
Okay.
So,
Well, the other one, it wasn't far, but it was much
Yeah.
different.
yeah.
And how was the gig? Was it a success?
The crowd was mild.
there wasn't very many people there, but I think the people there enjoyed it.
Right. If we we just did our 10th anniversary, I can't talk, of the same night, and that night probably had like 10 people, and it was cool because it was
all those character builders.
right, and a lot of those guys stuck around and came back 10 years later when we had like the place sold out.
Shows to go you.
Yeah.
Do you know, I have to tell you, even a packed house, it can be a lame gig. You got
Right.
that many people throwing fucking piss and shit and puke. And
Definitely.
I've had nightmare things. That's why I always ask about those kind of things. I want to play Cleanest Hands. We got to be a little more careful. Okay, here we go. Watch for Pedro Show. Sea Level started that chunk of music with Cleanest Hands. And for Barcelona, Mechanica Classica with Homero Scorpion. Also from that town, Nilsson with Around the Village Green. And then in Berlin, but he's from Terracina, Manlio Maresca, great guitar man. He don't use a strap. He goes and borrows a chair so he can fucking hike one leg up on there and just hold it up. It's a trip. And Manuel Ferrers with Janelle. 40 Ways from Sunday, come on, and Sea Level finally with A-Punk. Okay, so what about studio stuff? When did Sea Level go into the studio?
So probably that same year, near the end of it, there's this guy around Cleveland. You might have met him. His name's Billy Morris. He's like he was a hair metal guy. He played in he was like a guitar player in Warrant, like in their second reformation or something. And he's one of those guys that was always trying something new. Like he would own a venue and then he would move it somewhere else. He would open a studio. So near the end of 2011, I think we booked some time with Billy and went in and tracked our first like half the record. And then we did 2 things with that, two different sessions. And it was really weird. Never recording before. You didn't know. Well, is this the take? Is it supposed to sound like that? Is that all we do? Are we done? Oh, cool. I guess we're done. And like, it was an interesting environment. Like it was a more rock and roll than I think studios tend to actually be. You know what I mean? And but that's a. Do you remember anything else from those sessions?
Nah, yeah, like you said, it was very weird trying to figure out the recording process. A lot of the recordings that we did were live, and it was
Right.
just us in a room just playing the song like we normally would, and at the end we'd be like, was that good?
And we would get from the producers to be like, yeah.
So what you're saying, tell me if I'm got this straight, kind of a gig in front of the microphones.
Right.
Essentially.
100%.
And then there's a joke about producers.
Oh boy.
How many producers does it take to screw in a light bulb?
One.
I don't know. What do you think? Right, you're paying this guy money, and
Yeah.
I've heard some. Now some producers are different. They get very, very involved, and they're part of the trip.
Right.
But other dudes, it's like, what the fuck? So maybe, and if you've never had any experience, you don't know what it's supposed to be like, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it was very easy for them to just not care what we were doing.
And to be fair, we didn't maybe approach it as professional as they're used to either, because we're like, oh.
Yeah, but how are you supposed to if you don't know?
Right.
Right? The learning was by the doing.
Exactly. So we definitely learned from that experience. And
So you probably want to do that next time you went in the studio.
no, what ended up happening is we met this guy Kerry Kirchlow from RCR Studios, and he was much more willing to get in the weeds of the thing and like really work out the song. And we ended up taking the tracks from like the live tracks from there and re-recording like vocals and guitars on it, and learning how to make a song sound right, and how to like align stuff and do harmonies, and like how to take a second take, how to analyze. You know, there's so much of like self-analyzation that goes through a recording that you don't realize. You know what I mean? Like the mythos is like you just go in there, you're one track Brian Johnson and you knock it out. But it's true for some people, but you got to learn how to do that. And like, so our second go around kind of reworking some of these songs was really that process with a guy who was willing to sit through me fail harmonies for an hour.
Okay, somebody with some patience.
Right. Someone with some patience. And we've been working with him since.
All right. And his name again?
Kerry Kirchlow from RCR Studios.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Kirchlow, thank you for being so patient and helping to develop some Cleveland music dudes. Look, we're at the end of the second hour, March 29, 2021 edition of Pedro Show. Special guest Dave and Cody from Sea Level. Hold tight for hour 3. Here we go. March 29, 2021. It's the third hour of the Pedro Show. What was that, David?
Woo! That was Cody.
I was just saying, I wanted to say, like, yeah, you've been doing these podcasts for a while, and I actually had a memory
I never
this.
use that P word.
Yeah, but your
Radio
recordings.
Radio show.
Yeah.
Or internet show. Basically, it's an MP3 file that lives up on the internet.
But it's the first time I ever listened to one of those was maybe 10 years ago when we first met you, and you told us that you'd play our music on the radio show, and so me and Dave immediately dove in, and I remember that was the first ever.
Well, you understand, it's part of my trying to pay back the debt to the movie.
Well, we appreciate it.
Me and D. Boone Georgie got exposure. I should try to give exposure too.
Right.
So that's all I'm thinking behind that. Here we go. Watt from Pedro Show. Start off the third hour of music with Sea Level doing Funk for Free. Then Sun Ra. For some reason, when I was hearing you guys do that, I thought Exotic Forest. Got Damon Smith, a stand-up guy in St. Louis, turned me on it. Carnival Jones next with that's Crane, from Tragic Comedy and some projects, I think with the late great Richard Derrick. Bygones Are Gone. Sea Level finally with For Some Account. What about titles? When do they come in with the song right?
Either post, but a lot of times post. Cody always dogs me for like going in the studio and being like, "Oh, that's a slow C song. It's out of the key of C and it's slow."
Yeah, when we're recording, a lot of times they'll be saved as. We've had so many songs saved as C song.
When you're talking about, there's like a fucking working title.
Yeah,
Right.
So usually they come later after the song is more fleshed out and.
No,
recorded.
I asked that question because, when I write a song, I have to start with the title, and like fucking nobody I ask does that shit.
It's definitely part of the writing process, right? Like if you have like a head.
Yeah, it's an anchor, it's a focus.
Right.
Everything's got maybe it's because I'm composing mostly on the bass, so I'm not doing it very traditionally anyway. But I need something to maintain a focus, so I ask people that just to get their fucking trip on it. But tell me the process anyway. Was it like when you guys first started, where Dave, you got the fucking the batch of tunes, and then Cody starts tearing at it, or do you make demos where you write everybody's parts?
Mostly the first way. Like I'll write the tune, and present it to the group and be like, I don't know how to make this connect, and like then we flush it out together. Occasionally we'll like jam on a bit, and I'll do the opposite. I'll take that thing we came up with, write on it, and then bring it back. But it's either, so far we've had that A or B process. Like, here it is, let's put it together. Or take
Well, let
this.
me ask about a C part. Yes. Is there any Cody songs?
Yeah, occasionally there's been songs that I wrote over the years, and when we very first started the band with our original drummer Jay, it was kind of a more Minutemen collaborative process where we each kind of would bring in songs and then we would try to work them out for the band. But over the years, the process has turned more into Dave coming up with the skeleton of the song, and then
I'll tell you five or six times the collaboration process with me and D Boom, where we actually tried to write one line each. One guy'd write a line, here, you write the next line, you write the next line.
That's awesome, because I know some songs you guys sing it like that almost.
Well, yeah, but we only did that, I think it was 2 nights or one night maybe, and 5 or 6 songs came out of that. We never tried it again.
It's a hard process.
The good thing about with D Boone, because I grew up with him learning, I didn't have to teach him anything. I just play the motherfucker in osmosis. He'd get a part right like that. The only guy close to that, Nels Clyde. So I'm wondering, Dave, do you have to teach Cody, or does Cody just pick up on his own trip, like interpret?
He just picks up on the, like, we've been playing together for so long, and part of you and D Boone's like mythos, it really resonates with us because we kind of find the same thing, like, in a way. Like, I'll show him the part, and he knows what to do, and or he'll know, like, oh, this is this Dave Whack thing. He's gonna try to make sense out of it. I'll keep going until he gives up, and then eventually I win Cody over with a bit. But
okay,
like,
let me get a little specific of my prejudice. Like, D Boone never wrote me a bass line. He let me write all the bass for his songs and my songs. And so how's it work in your band? Because both you guys...
Yeah, well, Dave's never wrote a bass line for me. I remember there's one one song very early on where he wrote a bass solo. It's not really a solo, it's more like a breakdown where the bass kind of takes the lead.
right, which one?
Melodic.
Yeah, a melodic sort of bass solo, and but it was never the actual bass line of the song. It was just that part. He had the idea of, okay, it's going to go to this part, and you're going to do this thing. But that was the only one time, and that was very early on.
Little melodic break, right?
Yeah.
So most of the time when the Minutemen was getting their songs together, since me and D Boone didn't have to teach each other, right? It was with Georgie, because especially with D Boone, he thought that's what was political about the band, was working the drums in. So he didn't want he wanted all the breaks to have lyrical, huh?
Right.
Even though the notes are very short on a drum, he still wanted. So that's where we spent the most time in the song crafting.
I think that's one of the best parts of Georgie's drumming in the band is it's so lyrical. And when I show Minutemen songs to drummers who have maybe never heard of you guys, they immediately pick up on how lyrical George plays.
Yeah, really good. And then he, on the other side of that, he also wrote some bitchin' lyrics, especially on Double Nickels.
For sure.
And It's a Man of Star Fires. Look, I want to play Forsaken.
Awesome.
Well, for Pedro Show, last music for this edition. Sea Level with Forsaken. Then from Poland, we had Troopa Troopa with Day. And then Wizard Sleeve, Chrome Intensifier. And finally, Sea Level with AWOL. You know what that means, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. End up in the fucking Who's Cow doing that shit.
That's all.
Okay. Sometimes you have it in your band situation, right, on tour. Well, yeah.
For sure. I've definitely done that once or twice.
Yeah, the other guys probably really appreciate it. So, during the situation, have you been composing?
Yeah. We're actually working on a new record now. We got 9 songs pretty much tracked, and we're recording horns tonight, actually. So we've been...
Horn! Well, another dimension for the band.
Right. So we got there's this really cool...
Here, tell me about that. Because Well, you did a little saxophone, Cody, but who's arranging the horn parts?
Well, we've had horns on the last 2 records we've done. It hasn't been like something that's on every song, but it's usually 2 or 3 songs per record that we feel could use a horn part, and we have a few friends.
The Robin Blake Sound Experiment. These jazz guys, this fusion group from the area that I was subbing with on guitar, and we've been just like until pandemic stuff. Anyone that we're inspired by, we've been like incorporating them in our shows and on our sets, trying to make a scene of some sorts of music that really moves us. And so these guys are really tight, and it's a reggae tune and a funk tune, and it's got these perfect spots for horns. So we reached out to them and sent them the tracks and asked them to put their spin on it. So we're about to see.
So what you're saying, in a long way of answering the question, they arrange their own part.
Yes, we don't arrange anything. We just sometimes we might hum out something that we hear, but usually we leave it all to the guys who can actually play.
You wave your hand and say, "Make it be so."
Yeah.
Right. Well, there's some I gave more direction this time, I think, than I ever did. Like chord progressions and like as far as like this is going to be a triad rise and that's going to go to that. And then you take it where it needs to be and you can decide the harmony bits. So it's a half and half effort, but they're really going to make it cool.
Then I'll yank my pants down and fire off a rocket. Like you were talking about that first experience in the studio and the producer. Nowadays, you don't do that, right? You're self-producer, or do you, Mr. Curlo?
It's kind of half and half. Like, he'll tell me when I'm like messing up. Like as far as like, he'll be like, that harmony sounds too dissonant. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe let me try this. So he'll pretty much let me try to get my vision out and like, spell check when stuff is
like an editor.
Right.
Yeah, that's happening. Look, where can people find you on the internet?
So we're at c-level44.com for our website, and then the letter C-level on Spotify, YouTube.
If they go to your website, there's probably fucking links to that, right? Yeah. Okay, that's good enough. Those guys get enough advertising. They don't need that.
Yeah, that's true.
Pedro Show. The one I want to advertise is c-level44.com.
Hey, that's it.
And why 44?
Ooh, that's a great question.
So 44's been a number that's kind of followed us not just as a band, but as friends throughout me and Dave's friendship. It was a nickname that he had for one of his friends in high school. And I might be wrong telling the story, but I believe she went to, she served.
Yeah, in the Army.
Yeah, in the Army. And so Dave had wrote this song about how he kind of saw a girl that he knew from high school transition from just a high school girl to like a soldier. And so that song was called 44. It was on our original demo. It never ended up making it onto any other albums, so it's not actually around anymore, but the number has just followed us, and it's just kind of always been like our guiding number that we've seen everywhere we've gone, and it's kind of just always told us like we're in the right place or doing the right thing.
Here's my take. What's 4 and 4 equal?
8, which is
and what is 8? What is 8 sideways?
It's a loop. It's an infinity loop.
Infinity, right? So it's a great fucking number. They love that number 8 in Asia. I'll tell you, they love it, especially China. Look, when the new album comes out, please get it to me, okay? It's been big honor to have you on the show. Thanks so much. Keep on, brothers.
Thank you so much, Walt. We appreciate you.
It's been a bit honor.
March 29, 2021 edition of Walt Pedro Show. Keep your powder dry.
Very slow steps. One might call them baby steps.
But these steps are hip.
This is the podcast where we talk about our newborn baby's steps. But Dave doesn't have a baby.
I don't.
So
I'm just
kind of sits back and listens.
Stepping slow.
Also, my baby doesn't actually step yet. So
this is that smooth stepping baby podcast.
March 29, 2021, second hour of the Walt Pedro Show. And we're going to do easy 4. Easy 4. Easy 4. Easy 4. 2, 3. Bing bada boom. Boom bada binga.